astrologer Margaret Lake, who you might not know as Margaret Lake, but you might know as Mystic Meg, has passed away at the age of 80. I'm joined now by Mike Ridley from The Sun, who's known probably Mystic Meg for as long as anybody has. Welcome to the show, Mike. You and I have known each other quite a long time, it has to be said. I think I might have encountered you at some point in the 80s, but we better not go into that. But Mystic Meg was something of a cultural icon, really, for many decades, wasn't she? I mean, she came to The Sun, but she ended up on the National Lottery show. I mean, she was a woman of some substance for what you might call an astrologer.
She was, and what was amazing about her is she's part of British life now. If you were to get a politician in this seat now and you'd give him a tricky question, he'd say, who do you think I am? Mystic Meg.
Exactly right. It became part of our language. It did become part of the language, didn't it? Absolutely right. And you would have known her. She was a sort of an iconic figure at The Sun. She must have been there pretty much since the beginning, right?
She was there, yeah. What happened was she was a sub-editor on the News of the World magazine.
Right.
And one day the stars didn't come in.
Right.
And the editor's going, what am I going to do? And she knew that this sub-editor, who was calling herself Meg Markova then, actually was interested in astrology and had a bit of a psychic gift. And she said, could you do it? She wrote 12 beautiful horoscopes. Right. And the editor went, that's it, you're Mystic Meg. And that's how it started.
And that's how it started, brilliant. And I mean, she was loved by many people. I mean, because no matter what you say about newspapers, one of the reasons people buy newspapers is for the horoscopes, isn't it?
Yeah, and you take...
Which is a bit galling for the journalist, because you're going, I've got this great story, and you're going, actually, I just bought it for Mystic Meg, to be honest.
You take the horoscopes out at your peril. But one thing that Meg did that was different was she used to give these messages from beyond the grave at the end of each column.
Right.
Doreen of Burnley, the insurance policy you're looking for is under the birdcage. And people were fascinated by that, to the point where David Frost began his Sunday show every Sunday morning, reading out what Mystic Meg had said in these messages from beyond the grave.
Incredible. And what was she actually like as a woman?
Well, I knew her briefly because she flitted in and out of the office. Yeah. She'd come to the Sun parties, and then
I'm
she'd
sure I
vanish
met her
again.
at a party somewhere.
Yeah, but she never went there for long. She was in and out. And I've spoken to her assistant, who worked for her for 35 years, who said, I knew Meg, but I didn't know Meg. And she had this sort of reclusive life. But everybody knew her because she went on the lottery show in 1994.
And so she wasn't sort of owned, as it were, by The Sun. No, she was a sort of a free agent.
She was a free agent, but every Saturday from November 1994 for 3 years, she appeared on the lottery show it was only about a minute.
Yeah, I remember, it was very short.
And she would say, somebody in Sunderland's going to win the jackpot.
Yeah.
And they did. I mean, we had a Sun syndicate that won 2.4 million.
Yeah, you got some papers
I've got a paper here from 2000, which is Meg predicting that a Gemini, should keep their lottery ticket in a yellow mug.
Right.
And this guy, Tom Naylor, didn't have a mug. He was a lorry driver. He didn't have a mug in his lorry.
Right.
So he put it in an atlas with yellow pages and won 15 million quid.
Wow.
And
that is extraordinary, isn't it?
Yeah.
And of course, in those days, the lottery was a big deal as well.
It was huge.
Not so much now, but in those days, it was a show it was Saturday night television, because everybody sat down on Saturday night and watched TV still. Yeah. Not so much now, I suppose. But the lottery, and with her on it, it was a big thing, wasn't it?
Oh, it was massive. And Meg had her crystal ball, and she had that dark hair and those sort of cat-like eyes, and she was what everybody would imagine an astrologer and psychic to be, and she loved it. And
she did play up to it.
Her.
And you say that not a lot of people really knew the real Mystic Meg, but what was her personal life like? Was she married? Did she have kids?
She was born in Accrington, and her dad was an RAF radar operator who went off to war, and then when he came back about 4 years later, her mum had fallen for somebody else. So Meg never really knew her dad, but in that time she lived with her great-grandmother, who was a Russian Romani, who read tarot cards and
so
crystal
balls. Got the interest in it,
and at the age of 7, apparently Meg had her horoscope read, and it was told that she would marry a very wealthy man. Now, later on, we fast forward sort of 30 years, and she fell in love with a Pool's heir, who was worth, in 1977, 9 million quid.
Wow.
Nigel Moore. And sadly, he died in a car crash. And she never had anybody else in her life after that.
Probably heartbroken.
Yeah.
But she's her agent, Dave Chaplin, I'm seeing here, was, without any question, she was Britain's most famous astrologer by a million miles. Absolutely true. And one of the things that people do in newspapers, you do a lot of, because you're a feature writer at The Sun, writing people's obituaries, but you have to do it, obviously, ahead of any news about whether they might die or not. But you only just wrote the obituary.
Literally last night.
Yeah.
I finished writing it at 9 o'clock last night.
Right.
6 hours later, Meg had gone.
Yeah.
And that's unheard of. Usually when you write an obituary, people go on, seem to go on for a long time.
Yeah, so that it's ready if something does happen. You don't have to suddenly scramble to do it.
But she clearly, knew that the obituary was gone and it was done, and she went.
Yeah, astonishing.
Very sad.
It is sad, and she died in the early hours after being admitted to hospital last month from flu. But 80 years of age, a reasonable innings, I suppose you would say.
Yeah. And the great thing for us as a newspaper is that she'd written quite a number of columns in advance.
Yes.
So we've got 6 weeks or a month's worth. So.
And there'll be plenty in the paper, no doubt, tomorrow about her life and times.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I should look forward to reading that. So, Mystic Meg, I wonder if there's anybody who's going to become the new Mystic Meg.
Well, funnily enough,
do you go looking for somebody?
Funnily enough, I think she's made her choice. But it's surprising. We've already had emails from horoscope writers saying, "Could I have her job?"
Right.
Well, you'll have to watch out and watch this space.
If you can predict what we're going to say, perhaps we'll let you in. We shall see. Mike, great to see you. Thank you very much indeed.
Mike.
Mike Ridley there from The Sun. And tomorrow's paper, you'll see more and more about Mystic Meg, of course, who's died at the age of 80.